You have people on the phone?
Okay, I hear Commissioner Niles there. Who else is on the phone?
Steve Page.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Niles and Mr. Page for being there. Do we have anybody else? I believe that's all we thought was going to call in, so I believe that gives us a quorum. With that, we have 6 members here, and I think we need 5 for a quorum. Is that right, Laura? All right. A few welcome remarks. Just welcome to the holidays to everybody. It's an exciting time. I was telling somebody you never feel prepared, so every time you ask somebody, they go, I think I'm prepared or I'm not prepared, but I don't think you ever get prepared for the holidays. You just run out of money. That's how it works. And then the other thing the commissioner told me is those are not cannons pointed at us. See how they move around? Don't get nervous. He's not going to take one of us out. But it is televising us. So just know, he said we may see our own selves up on the TV screens. That's because those that have tapped in are able to see the meeting and actually participate from afar. So Avery and Mr. Page, if y'all have the ability, I think you can tap into the meeting live. All right. Having said that, I'll give you guys a second to look at the proposed agenda and approve that at the proper time.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second, Mr. Chair.
We have several seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? We have an agenda. Likewise, I'll give us a minute to review the minutes of the October 19th meeting. Once you've had a chance, I'll take a motion in a second.
Move we approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Mills.
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor, signify saying aye.
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 Any opposed, like sign? We have approved the minutes. All right, Mr. Nail, we will call on the commissioner.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello to everyone and those that are certainly on the phone. Before I forget it, let me start off by wishing Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Absolutely.
No doubt I'll leave here and forget to do that, but I want to say thank you for your continued support. 2017 was a very good year. It was a successful year for DCS, and that is attributed to you and your support. So I just wanted to thank you for that. We're going to start with some good news. Charitable campaign contributions. We set a goal this year to raise $10,000, and in fact, we met almost $14,000. I think it was about $13,800. So I want to publicly commend the DCS staff, but also Sherry Chambers did a wonderful job. And the other thing that I'm thrilled to say, instead of collecting toys this year, we did a book drive, and we collected over 2,200 books that have been distributed throughout communities and through our day reporting centers. And I just think that speaks volumes. A book is a little different from a toy because that mother and father and child can sit down together and read that book. So I was really proud of the work they did. And at this time, we're going to show a 1-minute video clip. I thought this would be a great way to get the meeting started. just proud of Team DCS. But I was going to sing with that. Senior management team at the holiday lunch, we sang for them, and we were respectfully asked to never do that again. So I figured we better hold off on that. Glad we're in the criminal justice business. Legislation. We have 2 pieces of legislation coming up. We have spoken with the governor's office, and they have in fact approved it to be carried as agency legislation. One deals with the change in the misdemeanor statute in regards to tolling and notification to the court, and that is actually going to be carried through the Criminal Justice Reform Council. So that will take place. The other is one, when DCS was formed, we thought we got all the necessary boards and committees, and we realized we did not have any representation on the Board of Public Safety. So we are seeking to join the Board of Public Safety. However, it is in an ex officio capacity. So not necessarily to have voting membership, but just at the table. I think Commissioner Dozier knows when he's on Board of Public Safety and probation was under corrections, that was kind of their voice and being in the here and the now, and it's real easy to be forgotten if you're not at the table. So that is really the only purpose. Again, the governor's office is supportive of it. We'll be reaching out to Mr. Wood, and I've already spoken with the colonel. So I want to let you know those 2. Our budget request in compliance with OPB is remaining flat. The only request is for funding for the Day Reporting Center and the Alcovy Judicial Circuit. That was one that we had also requested last year, and they did ask us to carry over to this year instead of funding 2 for last year. So that is the only budget request we will have. Our annual report has, the final version has been drafted. We're a day away from sending it to the printers. I'm proud of that. You will see it the same time everyone else that is statutorily required to see it. I think you know in statute the DCS board has to see it, and of course the governor and the lieutenant governor and speaker of the House. So I want to let you know that will be forthcoming probably the first part of January, and we'll send it out electronically, but we'll also have hard copies for it. We have a Chiefs meeting, statewide Chiefs meeting in Forsyth at Gypstick on February 8th. We will send you a notice of that as time gets closer. If your schedule allows and you would like to join and come and be recognized and have any time on the agenda that you'd like to have, we would certainly welcome you for that. Criminal Justice Reform Council does not appear to have a lot that is going to be impacting us this year. I think one of the reports that you'll receive in a minute will talk about House Bill 174 and some of the work that's been generated by that. But we continue to have representation. And Bert Fluellen, anything to add with Criminal Justice Reform Council?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you, Bert. Let me see here. APPA presentations. Winter Institute is going to be in Houston this year. We've been asked to make 2 presentations. One is on our body camera utilization, but the other one I'm just as proud of. Nick Powell, who works for DCS, is working on his doctorate, and part of his doctoral research has been accepted as a presentation at APPA. And much of that research deals with secondary trauma and also what they call compassion fatigue. That officers may endure and go through and constantly seeing perhaps not so good stuff on such a regular basis. So we're proud of Nick and certainly proud to go out there and present on body cameras as well. Also, GPAC's Winter Conference is going to be in Brasstown Valley. It is March, Barbara, help me out.
7th, 8th, and 9th.
7th, 8th, and 9th. You are certainly welcome there. We would love to have you if your schedule allows. And again, we'll make sure you get information under separate cover. And again, the Georgia Professional Association of Community Supervision, that is not a DCS organization, so certainly we'll have participants there from private, from public probation, certainly from corrections, from parole, DJJ. So it really is a good time for those in the community supervision arena in the state of Georgia to come together. And before I get to my next topic, I got to share this story with you. I think it's funny. My wife tells me that a lot of times what I think funny is really not funny, but that's okay. We were visiting the east and southeast offices over the past 2 days, from everywhere from Conyers all the way down to Statesboro. So we go into the Milledgeville office, and there's a young man that is sitting outside the office. And he didn't know me from Adam's house cat, but I just said, "How you doing today? Hope everything's going well." And he said, "Hey, can you help me out?" And I said, "Well, if I can, I certainly will." Now, let me give you the description of this individual. When you talk about tattoos from head to toe, yep, that's him. But I'd never seen this. Tattooed across his neck was murderer. Starting here, going all the way around about that big, murderer. So I'm talking and I'm like, And he's got a bandage wrapped up. I said, "Man, what happened to your hand there?" He said, "Well, I fractured it fighting the county jail." I said, "All right." I said, "Who'd you have a disagreement with?" He said, "One of the officers." Well, this is getting better. I said, "Well, I hate to hear that." I said, "When'd you go there?" He said, "Well, I just got out." I said, "Well, you reported like you're supposed to, right?" He goes, "Yes, that's good." I said, "That's a step in the right direction." Well, then I said, "How long you been on for?" He said, "In July." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, you were going to ask if I could help you. How can I help you?" He said, "I want a new officer. I want a different officer." I said, "All right, well, talk to me. What's going on?" He said, he sent me back 4 times since I've been out. I said, "Well, darn." I said, "Since July?" He said, "Yeah." He'd been in prison 5 years. He was 29 years old. Okay. Went in when he was 24. I know some of you are checking the math. I know. Anyway, so the interesting thing was, I said, "Well, what'd you get revoked for?" He said, "Well, robbery by sudden snatching, or theft by snatching." And I said, "Well, so you don't think you should have went back for that?" He goes, "No, that was on me." He said, "That was on me." Patted his chest. I had nothing to do with officer. That was on me. I said, "Well, that's good. You accepted some responsibility." But come to find out, the other things he went back for were he just positive drug screens. He wouldn't take advantage of treatment, and would continue to test positive, having trouble with employment. Here's why I say that. These are what officers encounter every single day. The challenges of a 29-year-old that had to walk to the office, had to walk home, and here's what I was proud of. The officer he was assigned to probably spent over 45 minutes with him, because after he went back to see the officer and we did our visit and left, he was still back there. But here's what I was really happy about. His drug test was negative that day. And we got him in Matrix, and we got him in MRT. That doesn't really sound like a big deal, but that's a big deal. That's a big deal for a man that has murder tattooed across his neck. And that's what our officers every day are dealing with, trying to give folks the opportunity to change. And I just felt led to share that we can't ever forget, and I know you don't, that that's where the work is being done and what they are up against. We continue to do ride-alongs. We have had excellent reception from the legislature, to some of them saying, "I've lived in this county all my life and I never knew these areas existed." So I would certainly encourage ride-alongs. If you have anybody you feel would benefit from a ride-along, I would certainly encourage that. It was funny, Senator Renee Etterman has been very, very vocal in the ride-along, and when she went, they're like, well, anything specific? I said, bring her back alive. I said, that's the man. Let's start with that. But she too recognized, and she's been in a helping profession for all her life, and she just never knew. So it's much like when you go inside a prison. If you've never been in there, it's an eye-opening experience. So anyway, I just felt led to share that with you. And again, I appreciate your support. The last thing I will do, and I know Commissioner Dozier, you and I had talked about it briefly. I've talked with a few other board members in passing several months ago. I would respectfully ask the board to consider moving to a quarterly meeting schedule. I know that post-council meets quarterly. I know that Board of Public Safety meets quarterly. Know that behavioral health meets quarterly. And I just want to ensure that on a quarterly basis, the agendas are robust, that you're getting what you need. And then on the misdemeanor side, if there is an action that the board needs to take, we can certainly have a called meeting. But I leave that with you, sir, and for your consideration. That is it. And absent any questions, I wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Before you step down, Commissioner, is there questions from the board, those on the phone and here on the Commissioner's request for us to consider going to a quarterly meeting?
Commissioner Nail, this is Steve Page.
Yes,
The change in the polling order, can you send us a copy of what the proposed changes will be?
Yes, we certainly will, Mr. Page. It's my understanding, and I look to Barbara and Bert if I'm incorrect on this, they are actually going to retract some of that language from statute and introduce entirely new language. And we'll certainly make sure you get a copy of that from the Criminal Justice Reform Council. Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
Sure.
I can tell you, in speaking to the Commissioner about his request on the quarterly meetings, there are a number of boards that do that already. Also, I know those boards take advantage of what the Commissioner mentioned of calling meetings when there's pertinent things that have to be dealt with. That seems to flow well for others. Obviously, it's the call of the board if you guys want to do that or not. I do think it merits a little discussion today versus a gloss over of it. So what's your feelings today?
May I ask?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, does this happen just by vote of the board? Is that
Tina, I will
anything
look to you, but I believe when Mr. Drolet was there, he mentioned that the meeting schedule would be appropriate if voted by the board on that.
Thank you.
I'll just make a comment, Mr. Chairman. I think that it maximizes efficiency. I know the work that is involved in having monthly meetings. I still like to have option, obviously, of having a call meeting if we need it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would be favorable to it.
Thank you, Ms. Billingham. Anything from you, Mr. Mills?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a good idea. You know, DCS each month, to their credit, sends a representative to our board meeting.
Right.
And so we're in constant contact. The question would be just simply logistical. What does it take to call a meeting?
You know, in the other meetings, it's as simple as an email and a phone call that we need to have a meeting on a certain date and make sure we have a quorum. And it seems to work with the Board of Public Safety and Post and others.
And post it.
And so, Tina, you want to add to
And post
it?
it for the public.
And post it for, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else on that? Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
Having said that, I would be open to a motion to move on that if the board feels that's appropriate.
So moved.
So moved, Chair.
Okay, so to repeat the movement, and I'll have if appropriate, Mr. Mills, I'll take a motion by Commissioner Niles, and if it's all right, a second by you. But just to make sure on the record, we're moving to go to a quarterly meeting as well as leaving the option for call board meetings for pertinent information and action that's deemed necessary. Does that meet, Mr. Chairman, what your goals are as well?
Absolutely, and I appreciate that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Niles, a second by Chairman Mills. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? The ayes have it, so the motion has been approved. Thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
We will move on to the committee reports. Mr. Halsey? I say that right. I always worry.
Yes,
I
sir.
always wonder if it's Halsey or Halsey, and
You can say it any way you like.
I'd like to say it how you would like.
How's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
Just to let you know, I am Patrick Holsey, I'm one of the deputy directors in our field operation division. David Morrison, our director, is not here today. He's actually at his daughter's school with a Christmas party, so he's having a fun time, I'm sure. But he did want to send his greetings to everybody and happy holidays to all of you. For the Division of Field Operations, we have a January 16th senior staff meeting scheduled, and that meeting is going to be with the division director and all the district directors, and we want to go over what we talked about and what we accomplished in last year and set some goals and strategies for the 2018 year. So we have that on January 16th. We are continuing to go through our early terminations and unsupervised cases that we're now being able to do because of State Senate Bill 174. We've reduced a lot of those cases, which helped us reduce our caseload, which helps us for the officers to stay focused on those offenders that are high risk and high needs. So that's going very well. One of the things we've also tried to do so that we can make sure we stay focused on high risk, high needs offenders is we looked at some of our processes. And what we found is that we have a lot of our sworn officers that actually work in court. And basically they're in court full time. They don't carry a caseload and they're in court full time. In a lot of those positions, what we looked at is that the work that they actually do can be done by someone that's actually a non-sworn officer. So we put a pilot project together to kind of pull some of those officers outside of the court and put them out into the field so they can supervise offenders, and put some of our non-sworn staff into the courts to handle those cases. So what we found is that it worked very well in the 2 pilot projects that we've done. We want to move that statewide. Now, I want to let you know that each circuit works differently. So we have to look at each circuit individually and not set something out statewide for everybody. So we're going one by one for each one of the circuits to look at how we can move this and move those officers out into the field and put some non-sworn staff to handle these cases in the courts. And like I said, it's going well with the pilot projects, and we're looking to move that statewide in 2018. Like Michael stated earlier, we had the statewide book drive for the agency, and we did very well with that. What we also had is a lot of our circuits took on the initiative to do something for them, to do something within their local community. So we had a lot of our officers go out and participate in the Shop with the Cop campaign and the Toy Drive campaigns. So we had that going along statewide also. Now, I don't have a video like Michael did to show that we did that, but I promise you it did happen. And that's about it that we have in the Field Operations Division right now. Y'all have any questions for me?
No, I just appreciate you defining what makes something happen, not a video. So
Yeah, that's it.
I'll
have a video next time.
Any questions for Mr. Halsey?
Well, thank you so much. And again, happy holidays to all of you.
Thanks, Pat. All right, Ms. Stanley.
Good morning.
Morning.
Just a few updates and highlights from Reentry Services. On the 3 grants that we've had for the last 3 years, and we're in year 4, we're in a no-cost extension year. Want to report they're going well. We've had 1 desk review on the financial side. Only had 1 citing that was very minor that we was able to correct. What we took from that desk review is start to prepare for the other 2 grants so that hopefully they will go just as well as the desk review for JRI. During that no-cost extension, we will continue to finish up our programmatic services, ensure that we take care of all our financials, and this also allows us to do our evaluation phase. So we're looking, hopefully at the end of September, to have the final evaluation back from ARS, and we want to look to that to define how do we move forward post-grant. So we're excited about what the evaluation will show. In that same vein, we've been working with GDC with the gold devices. We want to be a little bit more effective and efficient with our in-reach services, and that's where we have individuals that's working inside the prison with those that have been identified in the 17 pilot sites that will return to ensure they have proper resources identified. We have been meeting with them and leaving them a lot of paper and a lot of documents. So we said, how can we better, do this in a more effective and efficient way? And through some of our conversations with our GDC counterparts, we said we might want to use the gold devices. And through speaking with your CIO, we were able to work that out with the stamps to be able to share that information from the pamphlets to the resources identified for them to be pushed directly to their devices, as well as them having an opportunity to talk back and forth to that in-reach specialist. It's our hopes that in doing that, we can in-reach more. Even though we have one in-reach person assigned to each facility, most of them carry multiple facilities. So hopefully this will allow us to reach more than we have. Of course, we won't be able to reach everyone, but we want to maximize as much as we can. So we're excited about that. We're piloting it with 2 staff currently, and we're targeting 6 facilities. So at the end of 60 days, if everything goes well and we don't have any issues on the financial side or IT side of it, we would like to see that go statewide.
Ms. Stanley, just
Yes.
make sure that, inmates that are in the county camps and in the GO facility do not have gold devices. So
Yes.
as you plan that,
Okay.
just make sure you keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you for that. A few community engagements, in Gwinnett County, they're currently piloting a Lyft program. It's called Uplift. It's a cross between Uber and Lyft, but what they're doing is helping our individuals in the field that needs to get to the office or get to work with transportation. And that's funded by a few nonprofits, a grant, and a church that took that on. And it was spearheaded by our community coordinator in Gwinnett, Lee Robbins. So that's been going very well. If it continues to show the favor that it's showing, we hope to see it stretch a little bit further than Gwinnett County. We actually had, Lee and some of those individuals at our last IST meeting to share that information because, of course, we would like to see others think about taking that on as an initiative as well to kind of help with some of the transportation issues. Over in Troup County, the community coordinator, Chris Walker, is trying to work with individuals with some of the veterans. He's currently working with a master sergeant with Discovering Soldiers' Potential in Waypoint Service Center, where they've actually purchased an old hotel. They're looking to convert some of that hotel to housing for veterans and using the other portion of the hotel to share employment services, transportations, and make sure that they're receiving all their benefits for those veterans that's in the Troup County area. So we're excited about that. In Fulton County, lastly, our community coordinator, Valencia Miller, has been working with WorkSource Atlanta, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they were doing a hiring fair for the new Chick-fil-A that's subject to open, and is being newly constructed in Fulton. And they actually opened it to those that we're providing supervision to be considered for some of those, not only just the shift jobs, but some of the team lead jobs. And through our partnership with WorkSource, we're working with them on job readiness and interview skills. And that's just a few highlights for reentry services. Are there any questions for me?
See no questions, Ms.
Just
Stanley?
comment, thanks for the update and the progress on it. I hope the Uplift program can be replicated. Sounds awesome. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, and happy holidays to you all.
Thank you, Ms. Stanley. All right, Mr. Pratt.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. It's great to see y'all today. I'm not going to pontificate on the Georgia Bulldogs today, but we're certainly happy to see we're certainly happy to see them where they're at right now. So, what I'm actually here to talk to you seriously about is medication-assisted treatment, or MAT program. Recently, you're all aware in the news the problems with opioids and the opioid addiction in our country. Opioids come from an opium plant or a poppy plant. They're pain relievers, they're synthetic, they're natural, they give a sense of well-being, and they're easily addicted. And you know them through the word names of codeine, Vicodin, Oxycontin, Percocet, Dilaudid, and fentanyl is a synthetic version of that. But the reality is that addiction is something that a lot of families are dealing with, our communities are dealing with, and it's making national news, especially when individuals start using a drug under a prescription and then eventually end up going to heroin because they still have an addiction and they can't get off of the opiates. And so it's a reality of what our agency deals with, as well as all of the agencies we deal with. Recently, in November 2017, a large report that came out from the Department of Audits and Accounts looking at opioid use disorders, access to medication treatment, and a state plan to mitigate the barriers. The reality is all of us were dealing with opioids in certain ways, but there were a lot of silos where agencies were dealing with it in their own way, but not really reaching across the board to interact with other agencies and have a unified treatment. And that's one of the recommendations from the Office of Audits and Accounts, to have a statewide strategic plan to increase access to medication-assisted treatment for individuals with opioid use disorder, the addicts. Obviously, looking down to break down those barriers, it recommends all state entities ought to permit individuals with opioid use disorder to utilize medication-assisted treatment. And some of the recommendations more directly were for our agency that we should clarify our policies relating to opioid use disorder and medication-assisted treatment. Methadone, buprenorphine, and Vivitrol, one of the newer drugs. And as a result of that, we actually examined it quite a bit and have actually changed some policies and changed our stance in regards to medication-assisted treatment. So I'm going to kind of hit some of the high notes real quickly with you on this. Probably the biggest thing is to make sure our staff is trained on opioid use disorders and medication-assisted treatment. That was probably one of the biggest things we need to decide. Commissioner Nail recently sent an email out to the field advising our staff of the potential of medication-assisted treatment and the realization that medication-assisted treatment is evidence-based intervention that helps people with disorders of either opioid or alcohol use in their recovery process. And it allows a whole patient approach as it comes forward. Research shows that medication-assisted treatment, individuals on that program stay in treatment longer than those who are not. The mortality rates are reduced by 50% or more. There are improved health outcomes in relation to the transmission of infectious diseases, whether it be HIV, hepatitis, or other infectious diseases. And the people receiving medication-assisted treatment are able to become healthy, functional members of society. But the key is there's components to that treatment. And it's not just giving people medication and putting them on a holding pattern. You deal with the medication by prescribing what medication is appropriate to that individual. You have a counseling aspect, because the idea is to get them where they don't need any medication as time goes on. But you have to couple that counseling with that. You also have to have support from the family, the friends, and the community when it comes to that. Medication-assisted treatment is not for everyone. That's the first thing that everybody needs to realize. It should be considered, though, for those who really have tried in the past to get off of opioids and deal with their addiction, but have failed and been unable to do so. Our strategy, again, is counseling, treatment, medication, and work with those individuals and our partners out there in the field to ensure that we get the most bang for the buck. The medication-assisted treatment medications that we talk about are pretty common ones you've heard from before. Methadone, buprenorphine, which is Suboxone, and naltrexone, which is Vivitrol. And we actually have a pilot coming that is kicking off now that is with DBHDD as the lead agency, and it is through a SAMHSA grant that we are targeting individuals coming out of our residential substance abuse treatment programs that have opioid use in their past and that are past addicts, to issue Vivitrol to them and start them on the medication. And Vivitrol is different from all the other medications because you don't get high when you take Vivitrol. The use of the drugs does not allow that high. And essentially, instead of taking someone cold turkey, they don't get the effects of the drug. We've already dried them out and put them through an RSAP program. If we can get them out there and the drug does nothing for them, you get a stable pattern, and after about a year, you actually can get them where they don't have that addiction they had previously. SAMHSA grant came through DBHDD, and they are the lead agency. We are also partnered with Department of Corrections because we're going to have individuals that are coming out of an RSAP program that get a treatment a month prior to release, and then a treatment before they get out the door. And then when they come to DCS supervision, we're going to continue to monitor that treatment in our pilot sites. Our pilot sites are the Metro Atlanta area and the Athens area. Now, last week we trained staff in those pilot sites about medication-assisted treatment and what this pilot is, so that our staff are aware of what's going on. And we actually had our Community Service Board partners participate in these trainings also, because we're going to be working with them. They'll be giving the medication, we'll be supervising to make sure that the individuals are going through the program as they're supposed to. Had one in Atlanta where we brought people from our Cobb office, our Atlanta office, our DeKalb office, Clayton office. And then over in Athens, we had our partners from Advantage Behavioral Mental Health there, and we brought individuals from the Athens office as well as from the Rockdale office. So that's kind of what's on the horizon for our agency in this pilot. Again, we have looked at policies in regards to day reporting centers, because day reporting centers previously were an abstinence-based program. But the reality is, if you have an individual that has an opiate use disorder and they're in a medication-assisted treatment, and you continue to do the counseling programs, you're probably getting a little bit better result if you can get them through with that medication-assisted treatment and continue that day reporting center program. We've also looked at our policies in regards to drug testing and how we deal with opiate in the field, and so we've actually changed some policies. Reference to the letter from Commissioner Nail. There's a lot of education that goes on with this. Our community counseling unit is doing that with our staff and putting together some training for that. But on the horizon, it looks like a very, very good chance that this might put a dent in the opioid use of our population that we deal with. So if anybody has any questions, I will certainly be glad to answer it. Any questions?
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I had one, and you may have addressed this, I may have missed it, but is there any type of like working with the drug courts on this, those that are going through the drug court?
Actually, we have some drug courts that are also using medication-assisted treatment, and one in particular is in Jackson County. Their drug court under Judge Mingledorf is also partnering with Advantage Behavioral Mental Health, and we've had some conversation with them. And the reality is those individuals that are in that drug court are often under our supervision. So there's some partnership going on. And really, a lot of the accountability courts throughout the state are also moving to look at the possibility of using medication-assisted treatment. And it's evidence-based. It's something that we at least need to give a try.
And Mr. Kraft, just a comment, I would think, because the drug is Medicaid, Medicare eligible, therefore those that are in the accountability court are still eligible for that assistance. So it should be something in the community they're available to get. The incarceration part of it is the funding problem, and we're excited about the opportunity to actually start this through the partnership while they're still incarcerated. So we're still watching that to see how that grows and how that affects, and to see how the funding can help us in the future while they're incarcerated. We're real excited about the partnership too, Mike, and the biggest thing is that handoff for reentry, and I think this just strengthens the partnership between the two agencies and continues that fluid handoff that I think is already very effective.
One last thing I failed to mention is we also have done training with our officers regarding Narcan spray, and that's for individuals when they're out in the field and they're seeing people who might have overdosed already. That you can give that Narcan and actually bring them out of that overdose, and so basically save some lives out there. We've already issued it to the field. We've already trained our staff on it, so that's another piece that goes in when you look at medication-assisted treatment.
Any other questions for Mr. Kraft?
Not a question, but
Yes.
a few brief comments. First, thank you for underscoring the partnership. Thank you for your expert presentation. PBHCD is very proud. And we do appreciate this. This is a statewide conversation about a really complex problem. So just to underscore a few points that you made, because I think it's important for folks to understand state government is hard at work on what really is a complex problem. Some of what you mentioned, this willingness to look at medication-assisted treatment as a comprehensive solution. And I so deeply appreciate that you talked about the importance of pairing that with counseling. DBHCD was the recipient of every state got a federal grant to address the opioid issue. We received $11.7 million with very strict guidelines, as you know, the feds like to do when they give the money, focused on treatment, prevention, and recovery. So medication-assisted treatment is obviously a treatment portion of it. But just to be clear, we have a shortage in the state. So the $11.7 million feels like a great start, but a drop in the bucket. So these efforts around education and training are critical. And thank you. There are certain populations that are at high risk. We absolutely want to identify those. And two updates for you, because you mentioned the audit report, which really identified things that were happening in gaps in the state. earlier this week, on Monday and Tuesday, the Department of Public Health convened about 125 stakeholders following up on the Attorney General Carr's initial conversation to develop that statewide plan. So that work is underway. Public health is very clear, it's not public health's plan, it's the state of Georgia's plan. So you will be seeing a very robust plan coming forward. Very happy to report that. Also want to let you know, I hope that if you have an opportunity to, during the holiday season, go to the movie theater, I hope that you will stay for PSAs that should be running throughout all movie theaters, which is about opioid prevention activities. You mentioned one, the availability of Narcan, and really especially targeting young people and letting them know between the availability of Narcan, which can actually save lives in the moment of overdose, and then also Good Samaritan laws, which help young people to know if someone's in trouble, you can call and you won't be held responsible. So we're putting those PSAs out. This is one of the greatest examples I think we have of all the agencies working together. So I just want to thank you for that and let you know there is a lot of activity. Feel free to contact me if you want more information about education and training opportunities too.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to try to say this name right, but I don't know. Miss Shavonda Leslie.
Good job.
She had a name change. Threw me for a loop.
I did. Good morning, Chairman, board members. How are you all?
Good.
Good. I'm Shavonda Leslie, and I serve as the staff director for Misdemeanor Probation Oversight Unit. This year, we've been working really hard. We have 78 misdemeanor probation providers. 48 are governmental, and 30 are private. All 78 providers have received an on-site audit, so we're very proud to say our compliance monitors have been out there with boots on the ground. They have reviewed over 5,300 cases throughout the state of Georgia, as well as 132 service agreements have been approved ahead of time prior to the January 31st date for all the service agreements to be in compliance with our new board rule. 132 may sound like it's a small amount, but what we have is a lot of our larger private providers, what they've done is send a template of what they plan on sending to all their courts. And after they have that template approved by us, they will then send it to all their courts to have signatures and then send it back to us. The fourth quarter quarterly reports are due January 15th. January 16th is our statewide providers meeting, and Ms. Neville will have you the annual report will be available at your February board meeting. That is all I have. Any questions?
Any questions for Shavonda? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. All right, Miss Thomas, welcome back. We
Yeah.
missed you, but you had somebody fill in very good for you.
That's good
Just
to
know
know.
that you're in good
It's
hands.
good to know, right?
Yeah, but we did miss you.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I've been with you, so it's
Yeah.
nice to be back. Thank you. And I do appreciate Ginny and the other staff for stepping in, almost as though I'm not needed. So it's great. That's what mentoring
They
is
didn't
about,
tell you
right? No, Michael did. So I'll start off by saying happy holidays, and I don't know about you, but I'm excited for some time off and a little bit of time with the family. So I'll be doing that a little bit later today. It's fun. Christmas is fun with a 2.5-year-old. We're having a real good time this year. I'd like to just first start off by letting you know a little bit about the work that the Commission has been involved with the past year. I'm sure you're aware that the Department of Community Supervision has oversight for the family violence intervention programs in our state. And the Commission provides the work to certify and monitor those programs. During 2017, led by our now Chair, Stephanie Woodard, we engaged in a rewrite of those rules. The rules that are governed by DCS, those rules are currently sitting at the AG's office. You're welcome. Being
It was a
reviewed.
Christmas gift.
Yeah. Mark does a really good job of sharing gifts, doesn't he? So those have gone through a lot of work, and so we'll be prepared to present those to you for your review prior to them going out for open comments and then moving them into an adoption phase. I want to appreciate Mark for his work and helping us to get to that place. It was quite an endeavor. Currently, there are 118 of the family violence intervention programs across the state. Those programs are a 24-week program that offenders of family violence are ordered to attend, either through a temporary protective order or as part of a bond condition through the counties. Or they can be a self-referral. Folks can show up and sign to go for themselves and attend. So we do provide oversight for those. The work that we've been able to do with DCS since moving to DCS has been something that I will look back as one of my most proud moments. This work has been great. Since January of 2016, we have conducted, between January of 2016 and August of 2017, we have conducted 37 site visits, and of those site visits, we have issued 35 notices of deficiencies, revoking one program and issuing fines to programs. That is something that was needed, and I appreciate Michael's trust and confidence in us to go out and do those reviews and to hold those folks accountable, because ultimately they're supposed to be holding the offenders accountable. And I appreciate Barbara. I get these emails from providers, and I'm like, is that a provider or an offender? Because they get really angry if you're holding them accountable sometimes, right? Right? And so I'm like, wait a minute. All the time. So, but also with DBD-HDD, some of your folks that are going out and monitoring your programs send us notification when a program has been removed. That also has FIP compliance. That triggers for us to go out and do a site visit there, and then we ultimately find that was the program we also had to revoke. So, and then likewise, if we do it, we send a report there to your folks. So it has been a really good relationship, and we're continuing this work. And you signed some more letters yesterday, so thank you for that. So you'll get to see those new rule revisions, and we'll talk through some of the changes soon. 2017, tiny staff of 6, we trained over 3,500 people across our great state, and we're pleased with that work. That ranges from law enforcement officers to DCS officers, advocates, counselors, and we had a very successful conference. I wasn't able to come and brag about that, but it was a successful conference, even though we had to redo it due to Irma. We ended up with 420 people there at our conference, and that was a rescheduled date, so we're quite pleased with that. I'm also pleased to report to you that we've received new funding through CJCC, through VOCA funding. I have just made an offer, and that new person will start with us on January 16th. This is a really important position. It's a new direction, a new sort of work for the commission, in that we are going to be contacting and working with family members who have lost or who have nearly lost loved ones as a result of murder-suicide. What we continue to find in our fatality review reports is that surviving family members of murder-suicide or attempted murder-suicide are not getting connected to the resources that they're available to receive, such as crime victims' compensation, for counseling, loss of income, for crime scene cleanup, for funeral expenses. And the reason that's not happening is that there's not a prosecution. And so there's no victim advocate to connect with that family. So we're really pleased that part of the work that we'll be doing now through our Supporting Survivors of Murder-Suicide is that we'll be contacting family members and connecting them with the resources that are in their community and helping them apply for crime victims' compensation. We're also going to be training what I've sort of labeled as non-traditional family violence providers, funeral homes, crime scene cleanup, other folks that might be engaging and connecting and knowing about these incidences before we would know that, so that they can help refer people to us. So, a third of our homicides each year, a third of the deaths in our state are as a result of murder-suicide. And so we feel like this is a gap that we feel real comfortable filling. I'd like to invite each of you to the Stop Violence Against Women Day at the Capitol, our legislative day that we partner with the Georgia Coalition. That is January 30th. More information can be found on our website about that. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a plug in for the next conference. Our conference will be held September 9th through the 12th at Jekyll Island. I'm pretty excited to report that Mike Kraft is the co-chair of this year's conference. So maybe you did a pretty good presentation. Maybe we'll put you down for a workshop. So put that down on your calendar, and we're going to work to be able to provide scholarships for our DCS officers. And if you have ideas of where we might seek funding to bring in more folks, we'd be glad to start working now to look for scholarship to bring in more folks from different disciplines to join us at our conference. So without any questions, I will take my seat.
Great. Any questions? I don't see any.
Great.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
your
much.
passion.
Yeah.
It always comes out in your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, a little bit. That's what I've been told.
Before I move to old business, Commissioner, anything else from you? All right. Any old business or new business from the board members? I see none. Having said that, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion? We have a second. All in favor, signify aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you,
See you later.
Commissioner. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everybody.